Welcome back to Talk of the Town on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM, on WHTC.com, and on the WHTC app for your smartphone. Once again, here's your host, Gary Stevens.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, July 29th. Once a month, we get this gentleman to join us to talk about the West Michigan economy with a focus on manufacturing and employment. He surveys purchasing managers in the Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo markets every month. The last 2 weeks of every month comprise his monthly West Michigan Current Business Trends Report. He is the Director of Supply Management Research with the Seidman College of Business at Grand Valley State University. Dr. Brian Long on the other end of our phone connection this morning. Brian, good morning. Welcome back, sir.
Indeed, good to be with you again.
A nice, bright, sunny day, maybe bright, sunny outlook for the economy.
Well, for the industrial economy, it is still very much positive. Now, part of that relates, of course, we are a little bit on a war footing in this country right now, and so anything having to do with our limited aerospace industry in West Michigan is, of course, doing well. But automotive has held up remarkably well, too, given that the sales have looked a little bit more iffy. We've got some suppliers in our area here that can go toe-to-toe against the world market, and I think that's pretty positive, too.
If you have a question about the West Michigan economy or the economy in general, Dr. Long will be happy to take your call at 616-395-1450. One thing, and I'm not certain whether or not we can say anything about it right now at the end of July 2026, but one thing I recall that the current president said in his efforts to, raise tariffs was to, besides make a more fair trading platform, make it more fair for the U.S. as well as for, compared to other countries. But he said he wanted to encourage the American manufacturing sector to have more things built in the U.S. Is it still too early to see whether or not that has been a reality, or are we seeing, perhaps, in what your purveyance is with the manufacturing sector, are we seeing more things made in the U.S. as a result of what has gone on since January of 2025?
I'm going to say to a limited degree, yes. And, of course, the COVID mess rocked our boat, too. We found out that very small things manufactured overseas got held up at the ports, and a lot of companies are looking at those things and saying, hey, we need domestic sources for our 15-cent items so that we can still build our product. The same thing, of course, is happening once again, only on a larger scale for some of the bigger ticket items. I'm assuming that this trend may continue, but we are a little bit early to celebrate and say that a lot of manufacturing has come back to the United States. Some has for sure, and as I said, that trend somewhat started with COVID, but now it's been accelerated somewhat because, again, companies are looking at the total cost of doing business, and that total cost of trying to save a little bit of money doing business overseas hasn't worked out so well for them, so they are, again, looking at the possibility of more domestic manufacturing.
Along those lines, then, overhead costs for building things domestically has to be a little bit higher than maybe import because of the fact that you have to, it costs a little bit more to build things here overall, and then getting things from the supplier to the market, to the manufacturing thing has to be taken into account as well.
Well, our statistics statistics look very strong for this past month, but so do the statistics for inflation. Many firms are complaining about the rapid rate of inflation that they're having to endure. Some of them have been able to negotiate lower prices. Some of those higher costs have actually been absorbed by the sellers. And in other instances, they are just plain looking at additional sources across the board. So that is the other side of the equation that we have to deal with at this point in time. Most of the businesses, incidentally, say that one of them said, we've had a slight uptick in business. Nothing amazing, but still a win. We are hoping that this next 6 months will be strong. But another survey respondent came back and said price increase requests continue to come fast and furious! Exclamation point. We cannot keep up, and they are not much in the realm of wanting to negotiate lower prices. So they're a little bit, if you're in the supply business right now, you're between a little bit of a rock and a hard spot.
And type of supplies. Would that be a factor too? Very
much so. Anything from overseas. Now, some of our local firms weren't buying a great deal of anything from overseas, but their prices have still gone up. But anybody that is dealing with overseas is, of course, trying to negotiate this extremely complicated tariff business. Some of them have actually received refunds from the tariffs that were disallowed by the Supreme Court, but then other tariffs have come in and other restrictions seem to have come in. And they are coming back and requesting, the management's requesting a complete analysis from the supply people of saying, hey, where had we ought to go from here? Some of them take the attitude of, well, this may be temporary, and the whole thing will resolve itself. One of the respondents in this last month indicated that, it looks like the war is over. Well, that was the day that he responded. We can't make that statement now. The boat is still getting rocked, and the president is saying, get on board and pull the oars, or you're going to fall out of the boat.
Yeah, pull the oars like the Norwegian soccer team in the World Cup. If you have a question for Dr. Brian Long, we'll take it at 616-395-1450. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. You're on the line with Dr. Brian Long.
Yeah, just a quick question. Does the United States export more products or import?
All right, hang on a second. Let me get his answer, and then we'll follow up. Brian, your answer on that.
Very much. We import far more than we export. We are selling our country off one piece at a time. This is the merchandise trade deficit. Now, that's not the same as the, quote, current account. In other words, adding everything together, because we sell a lot of services overseas, but the merchandise trade export business is not matching the import business, and that has been going on for literally this last 30 years or so. And some future generation is going to regret that, and that's in part what the president was saying. We negotiated a deal with the Chinese many years ago that the Biden administration just plain didn't enforce. They were supposed to buy a lot more of our product as we bought more of their product, and they didn't do it. Now, again, the Chinese don't want the stuff that we make as much as they do our farm commodities. And that's what we have been selling literally around the world, and particularly to the Chinese, because they must import food. They don't have enough food to feed their entire country, but they should be pressured to buy more from us. But to answer the question, we still have a terrible trade deficit.
Hang on a second. You have a follow-up for Dr. Long?
I think Brazil and Argentina are coming up with growing more corn, and John Deere is making good money off of that. That would be my question, and thank you.
All right, appreciate the call. Thank you very much. You can follow up if you wish, Dr. Long.
Well, I have been overseas, and I see a lot of the 8,000 and 9,000 John Deere tractors all over the world that I haven't seen in recent years. They are expanding and using that particular equipment from us. But in the case of Brazil, they're burning down those rainforests and they're making farm fields out of it, and they're doing soybeans, and that's competing against our soybean manufacturers. And in the case of Turkey, they are exporting a whole bunch of frozen cherries. Whoever believed that Turkey was going to get in the frozen cherry business? But they virtually own the European market now for frozen sour cherries that we once had in this country. Particularly for Michigan, that is bad. So, but there is a balance there, but with many countries, we are still out of balance.
If you have a question for Dr. Brian Long, Director of Supply Management Research with the Seidman College of Business at Grand Valley State University, he'll be happy to take it at 616-395-1450. I'm going to use a line that you had in your summary, not the exact report, but when you sent the email for your monthly report. You said at the end, for the report that you did in June, in summary, June was again another good month, but we need to keep an eye on business confidence. Since you wrote that, have you seen confidence stay the same, wane, or, as they say, wax in terms of improve?
Well, I have to say wane as far as that is concerned for some firms. However, our local statistics actually improved for the month. Once again, our data was collected right about that point in time that it looked like the war might be over. And our confidence index is very much driven by the news media. And some months it's very good and sometimes it's bad when we put our survey out. And for this month, it looked fairly positive. But once again, that was last month, and we don't have the data yet for this month to say what it will look like.
Oh, by the way, Brian is doing the collecting of the data as we speak because you do your collection the last 2 weeks of every month.
Indeed.
So that's why he can't answer it. He's collecting the data as we speak, and we'll know about that in about 10 days or so from now. Now, let me go a little bit more into a general economic matter. The Federal Reserve expected to announce its interest rate decision today, and as we do our conversation with Dr. Long, that announcement should be coming in about 3 hours or so, around 2 o'clock this afternoon. And the majority of investors polled believe the Fed will hold rates steady, as several Fed officials have recently expressed concern about persistently high inflation, while the president continues to call for an interest rate cut. Do you expect basically business as usual from the Fed when we get the word in about 3 hours?
Given the current chair and his background, despite his relationship to the president, I still believe rates will be held steady. Now, another person in that position might have decided to raise rates because of the increase that we have seen in inflation, still way above their 2% target. But at the other hand, they are under a tremendous amount of political pressure right here. But every president I can remember has wanted interest rates cut because they are only in office for 4 to 8 years, depending on the president, and they don't have to worry about the future. But the Federal Reserve has to preserve the dollar, and the dollar depends on stable interest rates, and they also depend on stable inflation. And that we have not had just of late, largely because of all the turmoil that's going on.
Oh, by the way, I found it amusing just now. You mentioned about political. President Trump told reporters yesterday the new head of the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh, is doing a fantastic job, but the Reserve Board is very political, and some members may have bad intentions, according to the 47th President of the United States.
Well, I've counted noses, and I don't think that there's enough negative ones to call for a raise in interest rates. Some of them are calling for that, I might add. And that is not the usual case. The board is usually much more unified. But it, again, as you said, has become much more political, unfortunately, I'm going to say just in the recent years.
All right. Well, I'm quoting the president on this one, so don't blame me on that particular thing. I do.
Well, if he raises interest rates, boy, I hate to say the four-letter words that are going to come out of the president's mouth.
Yes, we've learned our lesson. We do not air presidential press conferences live. we learned that from his first term. Let me bring up a point with the opening on Monday of the Gordie Howe International Bridge connecting Detroit and Windsor, basically giving Matty Maroon some competition for a change. Matty, of course, owns the Ambassador Bridge, and some say he helped try to sort of delay the opening of the Gordie Bridge. But I think Matty got the elbow in the chops, just like Gordie would do when he was playing hockey. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the concerns that some have about the trading partner up north. Our wire service has a story about Canadians spending less money on traveling to the U.S. Than in the past. But with the opening of the Howe Bridge, even though we still have the tariff issues and stuff like that, do you still sense that perhaps our trade with Canada will still be good?
Well, it should be, and it will be as we go along. I am not happy with the president picking a fight with our closest neighbor, particularly in the case of Michigan. We have a tremendous amount of business that literally goes back and forth all across that bridge, and all of it was based on the assumption that we had the North American Free Trade Agreement followed by the successor trade agreements, that there wasn't going to be a problem doing business with Canada. And now we have run into this problem, and it poses a tremendous problem for the folks trying to do business. Now, we do have the foreign trade zones that they have expanded to take care of part of this problem. But unfortunately, it is not, to me, a good move on the part of the president, particularly holding up, as he was, the opening of the bridge. I'm just very disappointed that he didn't recognize that this was as important to Michigan, perhaps, as it is to the rest of the country.
Let me bring up one more story from our wires, and it ties in a little bit with what we've been talking about in previous conversations, Brian, about getting more people involved in the trades. A new survey reveals that construction is booming when it comes to wage increases. An analysis by ADP found that last month, pay growth for job changers in construction was up nearly 13%, and median gross pay was over $59,000 compared to $43,000 for all job switchers that month. The hiring boom for construction workers, along with their increasing salaries, is likely to continue while apprenticeship and trade programs grow. Yeah, not only construction, but the skilled trades as well. Hey, it's become the it career.
This is the place to be right now. Many years ago, the rule of thumb was is if you got a college degree, that would be worth 2 to 3 times what an hourly person would get. Now it's being reversed. You can get a college degree here in West Michigan and start at Kalamazoo Public Schools for $43,000 a year, or you can get a technical degree, and in 2 years you can be making $80,000, although we had one CNC operator that landed a job for $130,000 a year. Now, he was a superstar, I might add. 20 years old, though, and he's making $130,000 a year to start. This is what we are short. CNC operators, welders, electricians, all of those things were discouraged for so long, and now we're trying to come back and reinvent those as far as particularly the public school system is concerned, and particularly as the trades. In my area right here, we have the Plumbers Union and the Electricians Union that run extremely good internship programs, and those people are coming coming out, and they are in extremely high demand. That's why those numbers that you just quoted are up so much.
If you'd like to receive or follow Dr. Brian along with his reports, the monthly reports called the West Michigan Current Business Trends, it's part of the Purchasing Managers Index survey through the Seidman College of Business at Grand Valley State University. I will put a link to not only the most recent report, but past reports as well. We put the podcast of our conversation with Dr. Brian Long on our webpage at WHTC.com in the podcast tab under Talk of the Town. You can listen or download the podcast at your convenience for free and then click on the link to get those index surveys conducted by Dr. Brian Long. As always, sir, thank you very much for your time, Brian, and wish you and your family well. And if all goes well, we'll do this again in the month of August. Thank you, sir.
I will look forward to that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brian Long, on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM.
You've been listening to Talk of the Town on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM, on WHTC.com, and on the WHTC app for your smartphone.
We want to thank Alex Doty of the Ottawa County Road Commission, as well as Dr. Brian Long of Grand Valley State University for joining us today on Talk of the Town. The segments have been or will be uploaded to our webpage at WHTC.com in the podcast tab under Talk of the Town. You can listen or download at your convenience for free. Thanks to Brian Spencer, What's New Around Holland. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for listening and being a part of our program today. Tomorrow on WHTC's Talk of the Town, we'll have an update from Escape Ministries. Normally we're joined by Kevin Vanden Bosch, and an update from the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council with Jason Latham. Following NBC News with Michael Kastner, it's Lindsay Lawrence's Evergreen Commons Report. For Brian Spencer, I'm Gary Stevens. Thanks for listening to Talk of the Town. Have a good day. Hey, let's do this all again tomorrow.